Welcome to another episode of Calling Shenanigans. Today we're going to test out these red, white, and blue popsicles that I found on Pinterest. They're very patriotic and cute, and I think they'd be great for any 4th of July gathering this weekend. So let's test them out and see how easy they really are. You will need some raspberries, blueberries, some Greek vanilla yogurt, and some popsicle molds. I also found out later as I was doing the shenanigan that you will also need some blue food coloring. First, I started with the blueberries, or the blue part of the popsicle. You'll need to put them into a blender. I used a single-serve blender, and add a little bit of water so that they will properly mix. As I mixed them, I quickly found out that they were not blue, which you can't make red, white, and blue popsicles without blue. So after doing a little more research, I found out that you can add a little Greek yogurt, so I added about 3 scoops of it, and some blue food coloring until it's the blue that you want. And it still wasn't as blue as the original photo, so I'm a little annoyed about that. But it still was blue enough to pass when compared to the bright red of the raspberries. I find the gel food coloring works best because it's the least messy and the most potent with the color. Next, I put my blueberry mixture into a cup and poured it carefully into the container, which I thought was going to be easier than it turned out being. It was very hard to not spill it all over my popsicle mold, and I also quickly realized that it splashed the inside of the popsicle mold, which if I want those really nice lines that are seen in the original post, I wasn't going to get that since it was splashing on the inside of there. So what I did was I took a fork and I wrapped it with a paper towel and kind of like cleaned out the edges so that there wasn't as much kind of spillage on the sides of the container. I couldn't get it all, but I did the best I could. Next, I decided to add my white layer of Greek yogurt to be the first stripe of the American flag popsicle. This did not work how I wanted it to. It instantly started mixing with the blueberry layer below, and it was turning like a pinkish color. So after a little more research, I realized that I was supposed to let it freeze in between adding the layers, which made this process very long. So after about an hour in the freezer, I took it back out and I started adding my white layer to the ones that I didn't mess up yet. I found this process very tedious, and as I started calculating how it would take an hour for each layer, I realized that this was going to be a full day project. While the yogurt layer was solidifying in the freezer, I made my red raspberry layer, so I just put some raspberries inside a blender with a little bit of water and mixed them up. Next, I added that raspberry layer, and not surprisingly, it was just as difficult to pour as the blueberry layer and kind of got all over my popsicle mold. Here, wait, maybe this one will be better. Oh, looking good. Nope, dripped again. So after waiting 2 more hours and doing 2 more layers, I finally was ready to add my popsicle sticks. I will say that this popsicle mold did work pretty well, and I like how it holds the popsicle sticks in place, so I'll be sure to put a link to this mold below. So once you put all of your popsicle sticks in, you're going to put it in the freezer and let it sit for about 3 to 4 hours. When you take them out, you'll notice that the top might be a little bit frozen to your popsicles, so I used a knife to carefully pop the top off of the molds. I would be careful not to crack your top while doing this. As you can tell, I didn't think it was going to be this difficult, and I apparently haven't made popsicles in a very long time, so I was kind of learning as I was doing this. Next, I thought I would do the obvious thing and try to pull them out of their popsicle mold. They seemed a little stuck in there, so I started pulling a little harder, and I broke it. So don't make that mistake. I fixed the problem by running the popsicle mold under some warm water for about 30 seconds, and then they slid right out. I was a little disappointed that they didn't have those defined lines that were in the original photo, especially for how much work it took to make them. Okay, so you saw that they were a little bit harder to make than expected, but they do taste pretty good. So revoking shenanigans on the taste, calling shenanigans on how easy it was, because that was way more difficult than I expected. But they did turn out pretty cute, but still a lot more effort than I thought that it was going to take to make these. So if you find a better way to make them, be sure to comment below, or if you have any tips for me. I hope you have a happy and safe 4th of July, and I'll see you next week on Calling Shenanigans.